Welcome back to History Class with Dr. W and our continuing discussion of Vietnam. In this first lecture, we're going to be talking about the earliest civilization in the region known today as Vietnam, and particularly the influence of the Chinese. The cradle of Vietnamese civilization lies in the north, around the Red River Basin and modern Hanoi. Austroasiatic peoples began migrating into the region by way of southern China and the Red River in the period from roughly 10,000 to 2000 BCE. Over time, rice cultivation flourished, people began constructing dikes and canals, and organized settlements emerged. Dominant families emerged as well, clans united into tribes, and political institutions evolved. This civilization, which incorporated much of southern China and mainland Southeast Asia, flourished from the 6th century BCE to the 2nd century BCE, and is known as the Dongsun culture. It's known for its bronze drums, a key archaeological artifact from this civilization, which some embrace as the origin of Vietnamese national identity. While a vibrant people and culture, they were not always peaceful. Weapons were also developed, and conflicts arose. For the most part, power was locally held, and leaders rarely rose above that stature. Dozens or even hundreds of these local centers of power arose during this period. It was the Chinese to the north who began to develop a larger nationalistic sense of power and political control in the 2nd century BCE. The Han Dynasty, from roughly 206 BCE to 220 CE, is especially important. Its emperors began to look for regions to expand into and control, including what is today Vietnam. For the Chinese, the people living south of the Yangtze River were a curiosity, considered primitive and barbaric in many ways. They developed a number of terms to describe these people, akin to the way Romans referred to barbarians. One such phrase combined the words for beyond, Viet, and south, Nan. The two words together roughly correlate to beyond south, and came to be called Vietnam. Around 170 BCE, the loose collection of tribal leaders in the Vietnam region fell to a Han general named Giao Tuo. This begins a period of more than 1,000 years of Chinese rule and influence across the region. The Red River people were ruled under China as a province known as Jiaoxi. Jiaoxi was an important province for China. It was especially important in the realm of international commerce, coming from the South Seas and the Indian Ocean. The North Vietnamese coast provided an opening for trade with Southeast Asia, India, the Middle East, and eventually the Mediterranean and beyond. It was international trade, more than agriculture or raw materials, that were most important at this time. According to one account, quote, "This place is famous for precious rarities from afar: pearls, incense, drums, elephant tusks, rhinoceros horns, tortoise shells, coral, lapis lazuli, parrots, kingfishers, peacocks, rare and abundant treasure enough to satisfy all desires. So it is not necessary to depend on what is received from regular taxes in order to profit the central kingdom." Unquote. The conquest was brutal at times. There was always at least some resistance. Those who did not submit to the Chinese were often killed. Survivors might be jailed, banished, demoted, or rendered homeless. This sort of conquest rarely succeeds in the long run. It bred an undertone of hatred and resentment from the local populations, who were very diverse, spoke different languages, and were far from the Chinese center of power. So it was difficult for China to thoroughly control the region, Thus, Chinese rule to some extent was forced to compromise with the local populations. Local leaders were usually offered some role in the provincial administration, whether official or unofficial. Kinship networks and pre-colonial systems continued to be influential. Some of the local Viet population supported Chinese influence in some ways. The Han Empire introduced culture, technology, weapons, and political systems that were attractive to many. In many locales, there was a degree of cooperation between the Viet population and their Han overseers. Under this system, Vietnam continued to develop. The international trade and influence noted above was significant. So was the growth and development of local agriculture. By the 2nd century CE, agriculture had prospered enough to support a population of roughly 1 million in the Red River Delta region. New farming techniques and technology spread. Dikes and canals were built and improved. Organized labor practices, including in some cases slave labor, improved efficiency. In our next lecture, we'll continue discussing Vietnam in this period, especially noting the growing movement toward independence.